Hello, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world today. Right now, we are here joined with Dr. Corrie Block, who's had 25 years of experience spanning over three continents, and I guess that's where we are going to start our conversation from. Please put your hands together and welcome Corrie Block on Awesome Workers. Good morning, Corrie.
Hi, how are you? Lovely to see you.
How are
Thanks for
you?
having me, Samir. Really, really well,
Wonderful.
actually. I'm loving the day. Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
It is wonderful. And I think the brief conversation that we had itself was sparking so much of curiosity in me that I said, hold on to everything that you want to say. Let's put all of this outside. You said you were in Yemen and Estonia before you came to Dubai.
Yeah, that's right, actually. So, I, some people know the history, but I started my first few companies in Estonia, an educational organization, sound and lighting equipment rental company, a media company, a clothing company. I, I thought everything that I touched would turn to gold. It was actually a really cool experience. It was a great place to do entrepreneurship. My first wife and I moved there in 1998, actually, on the back of something my dad said. It was cool. I was 23 years old, and my dad went through
What
his
did he
midlife
say?
crisis. And so
What
we
did
were
he say?
sitting in the backyard one day, and he goes, listen, Corey, he says, I just finished 25 years in my company, and I'm not sure if I wasted half of my life or not. And I was like, wow, okay, so that's a shocking thing to say. And he said, no, listen, if you want to do something crazy with your life, you should do it while you're young and you have time to clean up the mess. And I said, that's really good advice. I hadn't really thought about that. So I went home, told my wife, I said, listen, this is what my dad said. And I think he might be right, because I knew where we were headed, right? I had a very, very good job. My wife, she had a very, very good job. And we bought brand new cars, brand new condo, whatever we wanted. And we were 23, like we were young. So I was looking out at the horizon of my life trajectory. And I was like, okay, I know where this goes. This goes to like a single family suburban house, white picket fence, 2.5 kids, a dog, and soccer in the weekends, right? Like that's my future. So I asked her, I was like, is that what you want for your future? Like, what do you want? And she's like, no, 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 let's do something more adventurous. So we ended up selling everything. We sold all of our stuff and moved to the other side of the world. We moved to Estonia, which, like, I'm from Vancouver, Canada, and Estonia, like Tallinn, Estonia is here, so it's about as far away as you can go before you start coming back, right? So we just like took whatever we could, moved there, and poured everything we had into the organization. And for the first year, actually, this is something that entrepreneurs don't understand, because they have VCs now and accelerators and the and it's a lot easier, right? Like the ecosystem for entrepreneurship is a lot easier. But back in those days, there was no accelerators, no VCs, nothing, right? So we just built it from scratch on the ground, and it was all just you and the pavement. And we burned through all of our cash in the first year. We ended up just eating potatoes for months because we didn't want to spend money on meat. We just took the bus everywhere, and just everything we got just churned right back into the organization. So after about a year, my wife, she became anemic. She was malnourished. We ended up going to the doctor. We thought there was something wrong, and sure enough, there was. We were both like severely malnourished as entrepreneurs, and it was just at the beginning of the second year that everything sort of clicked. We found the niche in the market that we were looking for, and then everything we touched turned to gold.
Malnourished as entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
uh, do you mean as a metaphor or do you mean it literally?
No, I
Both.
mean, literally, we were both significantly iron deficient, and we had to take supplements. And we went to the doctor because my wife, she thought she was sick. And yeah, it was rough, man. Like the first year was really rough. We were in a foreign country, having to learn a foreign language, operating in a foreign economy. And even though the technocrats were starting to rise up in leadership, the technocratic revolution in Estonia didn't happen until the early 2000s. So we were there 2 years ahead of that. We were there before the first really large supermarket was built. And it was, post-Soviet, pre pre EU,
Yeah.
and it was just
The
an
Cold War.
amazing environment. Yeah,
The
really
Cold
old world. Yeah.
the Cold War was just coming to an end at that point of time, I think, right?
That's right. Well, it,
Between
it, it came to an end, I think, in 1993 or 94. Everything started to
yeah.
crumble down, but still, 4 years later, it was not It was not rebuilt. Now Estonia is like amazing. Some of the most incredible technologies have come from that tiny, tiny little country as a result of the fact that, well, let's face it, in 2001, 2002, when they started the revolution, the internal revolution, they started hiring very young politicians. And those young politicians looked at the policies and procedures and systems of government, and they said, listen, there's no point in retrofitting any of this. Let's just throw it all out and start from scratch. And so they did. So they're the first digital government in the world, first paperless government in the world. They have the first digital, digital only residency program, where you can become a resident of Estonia, never live there, never even visit there if you want to. The e-residency program is so good. But while we were there, like Skype was born there, and that was a massive acquisition when they bought that for, I think, a number of $1 billion at the time, $4 billion, something crazy like that, for this tiny, tiny little company. But nobody in the world knew where the Skype office was, but we did, because we had friends there, right? So in this tiny little office in Tallinn. So our company was one of the very first to get connected to a T1 connection in Estonia. We had access to the technology of Skype, and so we were the first to broadcast. We broadcast as a VoIP signal. That was in 2000. Oh, goodness, I want to say 2002, 2003. But it was a while ago. But being in that such a chaotic environment, right? It's the chaos of new birth. It's the chaos of what grows after a volcano erupts, right? So you have the Soviet Union totally implode, and then all of the new life that can come out of that kind of chaos. And we were there for that. And that was just amazing.
The country was operating like a startup?
Oh, yeah. It still is. Yeah, they're still very, very forward thinking. I was talking to, oh goodness, the director of the e-residency program. What was his name? Ott. Anyway, Tavi. So this was maybe a year and a half ago. And we were just spitballing ideas on it. I was like, okay, so where are you going next? Where are you going next? And he goes, where we want to go next is country as a service, right? What does it look like for a country to provide an entire country's worth of services entirely decentralized? Like, can you be in a country, be a citizen of a country, taxed by that country, protected by that country, and not ever live there? And there's such an interesting and deep question, because it raises questions about the fundamentals of territorialism, what it means to be a country, the importance of geography in the services that a country provides for its citizens. Yeah, it's just really fascinating conversation, actually.
I like what you said earlier about being malnourished as an entrepreneur, and I want to take it at a metaphorical level. At a metaphorical level,
we were really,
what is
we were genuinely sick.
No, what I mean is, for a business owner or a startup business, what does being malnourished as an entrepreneur mean? Not
nowadays
yeah.
So look, nowadays there's a lot of support systems. Okay, so you have the VCs and you have the accelerators and you have the incubators. But nowadays, what you need to recognize, I think, as a first-time entrepreneur, is that building a business is like having a baby. Okay, the first time you do it, you think you know what you're in for. You have no idea. The first 2 years of starting a new business, it's just crying and crap, and you don't sleep, and you're always trying to save it from killing itself, and nobody says thank you for anything, right? And you're working like all the time. And that's the truth, right? You don't take a vacation in the first couple of years of having a business, just like you don't take a vacation in the first couple of years of having a kid. So after about 2 years, it can stand on its own. It can survive for a day, and it won't die if it doesn't have your attention for a day. That's fine. But it usually takes about that time, 18 months to 2 years. So I just really caution entrepreneurs. The reason that 80% of businesses fail in the first 2 years is because it's a lot harder work than most entrepreneurs think it's going to be, and the first 2 years really sorts out the kinds of ideas that really will make money and the kinds of entrepreneurs that really can go the distance on that kind of marathon. Yeah.
I'm reminded of a couple friend of mine. They're couples, and when they had their baby, in fact, in the first year of the baby being born, they were always adventurous, and they always traveled. They went to all over the world. They were architects, and they kept traveling all over the world. They took the baby and went. They said, we will not allow our life to stop and not do things just because we have a baby right now.
Yeah. So we did that too. We always said babies are portable, and babies are going to fit into our lives, right? My
Mm.
first wife and I. Look, I don't think I was ever an amazing father. I wasn't mean, but I don't think I told my kids when they were old enough to understand English. I said, listen, I'm so sorry. You did not win the lottery with me, you guys. I'm not going to be mean to you, but I'm not going to win the #1 dad of the year award either. I said, look, I'm at about the 70th percentile on good dads, right? Like, you've got amazing fathers and really bad fathers, and I'm at about the 70th percentile. So I kept their expectations managed throughout their entire childhood. But yeah, my first wife and I, we got that part right, was to just be really humble with the kids, help them to fit into our lives. They ate what we ate, they went where we went, they slept when we slept. That was just always kind of required. And then just to remind each other as parents, look, we're not raising kids, right? We're raising adults. We have 18 years to prepare this child for a world that does not love them and will not tolerate them nearly as much as you and I will. So that was
Mm.
always kind of a consistent narrative. And as a result, like my two kids are now 22 and 18. They're out the house. They're fully functioning adults in the adult world. They're doing it. They're on their own. It's awesome. So I think
Mm.
we did something right.
Amazing. And what made you leave Estonia?
We exited out of our organizations there and wanted a new adventure. So I really just I wanted to actually move to the Middle East and learn
Hmm.
Arabic and just live somewhere totally strange, somewhere totally different. So we were looking at like Beirut or Amman, Jordan. And then I spoke at a conference in London. I can't remember what year it was, maybe 2006. It must have been 2006. And after the conference, I had mentioned during the conference, oh, we're leaving Estonia, we're moving to the Middle East somewhere. And this guy came up to me afterwards and he introduced himself. He said, listen, I think you should move to Yemen. And I was like, oh, that's so
Mm.
cool. Where is that? I didn't know. Like, I had no idea. So he had to pull out a map and show me. He's like, oh, here it is, right on the peninsula, a little country there. And I was like, okay, cool. Why should we go there? He said, listen, we don't have water or electricity, but it doesn't matter because we've got khat and everybody chews khat every day. So you feel great. And the people are just so welcoming. And if you really want to learn Arabic, you should go to somewhere where they don't speak English. And this is it. So that kind of made a lot of sense to me. And I went home, told my wife, hey, listen, why don't we move to Yemen? She's like, awesome, I'm in. I was like, great, because both of us had a really big sense of adventure. So that's when we moved there. We were there from 2007 till 2012.
What do you do there?
Same thing
What
as
did
I'm
you do?
doing now. Yeah, strategy and restructuring. I originally just wanted to go for 2 years, learn Arabic, unplug, not work. But by the end of the first year, I was already working. We ended up moving into the house right next door to the wealthiest man in the country. And his name was Ahmed Al Sayed Anam, and he had 45,000 employees and controlled about a third of the GDP while we were there. And it was just like really good luck. We are like, oh, this is great. And because rent was so cheap, we rented a castle. So the person in the castle next to us was this business guy. Anyway, so he was such a lovely man, humble, just a brilliant leader. And I would often go up to his house and we would talk for a long time. And he says, look, I need my kids and my grandkids to hear this from you. I want them to have your influence. So I ended up doing some strategy, restructuring, leadership training for his group of companies. And that led me into other contracts. I did some work in power and water, oil and gas. My career is as a strategist, right? Like, I've been a serial entrepreneur, but at the same, like, my parallel career is strategy work. So I go into companies, I restructure them, I do leadership training for them, I build them strategies that's going to work and help them to execute it. Actually, the last company that I owned was a strategy company here in Dubai.
Mm.
So I have exited out of that 7 years ago. Now I still do strategy work, but I use only internal teams. I work with people that are actually in the organization, and that helps me to not create the unhealthy dependencies that my industry creates for the companies that we serve. But yeah, that's what I was doing
Oh,
in Yemen.
can you elaborate on that? What you just said, unhealthy
Sure.
dependency on? Yeah.
Yeah,
What is
sure.
that?
Yeah, look, it always bugged me that as a strategist, look, one of the things you're going to see on my LinkedIn, if you look at my LinkedIn profile, it's a week long. It's horrible. But the loudest thing that's on that page is what's not on that page, right? I have years and years, well, now almost 30 years in strategy, restructuring, leadership training, and organizational development. And I've never spent a day in the Big Four, not one. Like it's just not there. And part of the reason for that is it really frustrated me the way that those companies do business. And then I ended up replicating some of their business models when I was with my own strategy firm here in Dubai, and we created those same unhealthy dependencies. We'd go into a company and we would say, okay, we're going to do change management, we're going to do restructuring or a new strategy. We would build out this great strategy document. We would give it to them, and then they would say, yeah, come in and execute it for us. Now we have my team. We would go into the company, execute this incredible change management and new transformation, organizational transformation, restructuring, all of it. Okay. And at the end, yes, they had a renewed vision and a renewed strategy and some new staff and new processes. But then me and my team would take all of the transformation expertise out with us. We would leave. And the problem with that is that in the 2000s, that was fine. But as the pace of change became so fast, right? By 2011, 2012, transformation isn't a project now, it's a culture. You have to have continuous transformation. You have to take that design thinking approach, not just to your products and services, but to the culture of your organization, the processes, the leadership tactics, all of it. You have to take that design approach to everything in your organization. And so it became increasingly clear that I was creating an unhealthy dependency on my organization in the clients' organizations that I served. So I really just wanted to get away from that. Now for the last 7 years, all of the strategy and restructuring work that I've done without my own team. I've done it with internal teams that I create from the staff that are already in the organization. And that way, when I'm finished the strategy and restructuring, let's say, well, I'm not finished the project because it's never finished, but I'm finished my iteration in that strategy and restructuring. One of the things that I've left behind is the expertise to do it again, so they can just begin the cycle the day that I leave.
So you call it unhealthy dependency on your team and everything, right?
Yep.
Is the only way to create healthy dependency is by removing your own team and depending on their team, or is there another way where you could create healthy dependency on your team? Is there a different way?
Look, honestly, the majority of what needs to be done in organizations in terms of strategy work should be done within the organization. And even if an external team comes in, they should be using the expertise, the knowledge, and the experience of the people that are already in the organization. So as an external consultant, I go in and it's my job to help to distill from what's inside the organization, how it thinks, what it feels, what it imagines, what it dreams as a community. What does the community want? And that, I would say, is a healthy dependency, that it's always helpful. In the same way it's helpful to have a therapist in your life so that you can talk through what you want to do and how you want to take your life and the attitudes and behaviors that you want to change. And it's helpful to have a coach in business so that you can have somebody to talk through all of the tactics that you want to adopt or the habits you want to build in order to achieve your definition of success. In that way, that's a healthy dependency, to have an external coach to help you through figuring out what success looks like to you and build those attitudes and behaviors that lead to that definition of success. So that's a healthy dependency. And if consultants are doing that, if our job is not to actually create and then execute the transformation, but if our job is really to just go into the organization as a coach and say, hey, listen, let's define what success looks like for you, and then help you to choose processes and people that help you to achieve that definition of success. I think that's a healthy dependency, because then we don't actually end up doing the work. They do the work. We just coach.
So I hear you speaking about how you help other organizations grow, right? Teams and individuals. But what would growth for your organization look like?
I don't have, well, I don't have an organization to speak of. It's really just me. For the last 7 years, I have earned the right to do whatever I want with my life. And so I only work in companies that whose puzzles I think I can solve. I only work with people that I would hang out with. I only coach coachees that I enjoy their company. So that's kind of a wonderful thing. Me, in terms of growing my organization, I don't want to grow a formal organization. not for myself. I don't want employees, and I don't want people signing contracts with me and tying their lives to me. What I really do want, though, is I want a community of people, which I already have now, a community of people around the world that find my voice valuable in their own lives. And then as they listen to me, interact with my books, take my courses, see me live, or get coached by me in a one-on-one coaching relationship, the quality of their life goes up incrementally as a result of me being in it. And that's what I want. So that's the growth of my organization. Is it's an entirely informal organization where there's a whole bunch of people around the world that interact with my ideas, and as a result of that, they're able to improve the quality of their own lives. That for me is really, really good growth. And I'll tell you what, I have my BHAG attached to this, right? Like my big, hairy, audacious goal is attached to this, and it's 1 million lives a month. I would like to incrementally improve the quality of 1 million lives every month. And I don't know how to measure that yet. I do not want to measure that in followers on LinkedIn. I know, but that's my goal. That's what I want. I want to improve the quality of 1 million lives every month.
I can give you a way to measure it.
Okay, good. Yeah,
It just came.
tell me.
You know,
Yeah, tell me.
uh, coach world leaders.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Look,
You know,
I'm on my way there now.
country head, country heads, leaders of
Yeah.
nations.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. No, I
every
get that.
decision that they make is impacting 1 million lives.
That's exactly right. Yeah, so I have that now in organizations. I'm coaching CXOs in some of the largest organizations that we have in the Middle East and North Africa, and some globally. Yeah, I coach leaders at the UN, Microsoft, World Bank, Emirates. Like, yeah, it's been really, really amazing for me to have that kind of an influence, because as a coach, right, I don't do anything directly. I don't have any authority at all. So if there's change that happens, it happens through someone else's authority and only because of my influence, which is a much more pure form of leadership to me, is to lead without authority at all. And so when I'm with my coachees and they see the organization differently, or they see themselves in their role differently, and as a result, they become just a little bit more caring, a little bit more loving, a little bit more compassionate toward the people that they serve, or toward the customers that they serve, then it changes the way they make their business decisions. And then the entire organization just incrementally shifts in the direction of improving the quality of the lives of its employees just a little bit more. And I think that for me has been really, really rewarding. I'm not at 1 million a month yet, but I'm definitely, like, if we count the employees of the companies, the direct reporting employees of the coachees that I'm working with now, yeah, it's easily 30 or 40,000.
And I think
So
direct
I'm
and
happy about
indirect.
that.
I think indirect also will
Yep.
count. When they're head of the organization, then even indirect employees would be a big number, and probably
Yeah,
getting
100%.
all those numbers tabulated together would probably, what you said is very interesting about you being your own boss and you being a free person and you choosing to be. I'm very similar. I'm the same actually. You reach a point, I think.
Yeah.
But I saw this coming a long time back, and I really believe that we are moving into an economy which today they call the gig economy, where you'll
Yeah.
earn a little bit money from a lot of people rather than a lot of money from one company or one individual, right?
Mm,
So the opportunity for that is increasingly moving ahead. The whole world
yeah.
is moving towards. It seems like. What are your thoughts on the gig economy and how individuals, even if they're working within organizations, should position themselves as part of a gig economy?
Well, I think actually the paradigm needs to change, but the structure doesn't. Most employees don't realize they're already in a gig economy, right? We learned during COVID that any kind of stability you think you have because you have an employment contract is perceived, right? Anything can happen, and you can be out of a job, the company can fold, the entire industry can fold, right? So you can be disrupted tomorrow. There could be some major change that you're not aware. You could lose your job at any time, and so it's really important for us to recognize that the stability and consistency that we think we have as employees is it's perceived. It's a myth. So in that sense, all of us are a part of a gig economy already. And even those of us who think that our job is secure indefinitely, we don't intend to stay indefinitely, right? So we're always making some sort of plan for the next step of our career in our heads. 2 years from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, it doesn't matter. It's like even 6 months from now or 6 years from now, you can be making a plan, but you're making a plan for the next stage in your career, which is outside of the organization that you're in now, generally speaking, which means you were never going to stay. It was always going to be gig, right? You were always going to stay for a while, because being in that organization develops you. It helps you to learn. It connects you with people. It grows your career. You get a good job title, decent wage, all of that stuff, right? But it's just the next step. And we have to be taking the next step, right? As human beings, we can't be sitting still for long. Like the idea, like my grandfather was in the same hospital, I think pretty much the same job for 35 years. He was very happy there, retired there. And I think those days are gone. We know that we can move from one organization to the next, one community to the next, one developmental challenge to the next. And so all of us are aware that, not only can we have jobs in 8 or 10 different companies through the course of our career, but we could probably get away with 3 or 4 different careers through the course of our life.
Mm.
That's how, and I think that's a reflection of abundant world, right? We live in an abundant world that has never existed before. We've never had this level of access to opportunities, career choices, technology, communications, healthcare. Your life, it's probably like me, Samir, your life expectancy has gone up by 15 years since you were born. Like that's an amazing, abundant world. And so the conglomerate of opportunities and possibilities and options that we have in front of us forces us to recognize, yeah, you know what, I'm already in a gig economy. I'm not going to be retiring here. I know it. You know it. So let's just be honest about that and be really, really great at welcoming new people onto our teams and celebrating people who go to the next step.
Absolutely. There's something that is coming to my mind, and I know you said you can ask anything you want and we can keep it open and curious. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think failed in your first marriage? What was the reason that didn't work out?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a really personal question. My ex-wife and I was deeply, deeply in love with Dawn for a quarter of a century. That is a tremendous amount of time to be deeply in love with someone. Toward the end of and we went on so many good adventures together, right? I tell my kids even now, I'll preface with this. I tell my kids even now, like if I could go back and choose to do it all again, even knowing how it would end, I would. Even knowing how painful the end of that relationship was for me, I would do it all again, experience the pain again, because the adventure was really that good. It was really, really fun. But ultimately what happened was my ex-wife decided to go on an adventure that I was not invited on. And so she made choices that were good for her and that left me behind. And that's okay. Like if that's what she needed to develop. It was really painful for me. But I got therapy. I saw a counselor. She and we worked on our marriage for about 6 months. In the end, I said, look, I don't think this is going to work for me. I don't think this is going to be good for us. I didn't want the quality of life that we were headed for. And I said, I just don't want to spend the next 30 years wondering if I can trust you. And I don't want you to spend the next 30 years with me over your shoulder. And, neither of us deserve that. So let's part ways and build a new adventure. And so we did. It was all very amicable. There were no lawyers involved. It was done in an hour because of Sharia law. It was really, really fast. So, wow. Yeah, personal question, Samir.
I tell you where that is coming from. The reason why I was asking that is because you repeatedly were speaking about how you are hard on strategy and how you help organizations with strategy. And strategic thinking is about rational thinking, not emotional thinking.
That's correct.
And we are mostly, driven by this rational thinking and everything having a reason and everything being rationalized in all our approach to everything. And I was just seeing if the emotional angle was, What was that over there? I just wanted to reflect on that.
No, it's okay. Look, I firmly believe that the world has whatever meaning we want it to have, right? So what happens happens. There's not much about what happens that we can control. We can control our own
Yeah,
behavior. We can control our own words. That's it. So that's what happens out in the real world. But what it means, we have 100% control over that. And we create all of those layers of meaning right here, just between our ears. And we have
yeah,
inside of this space, we are like small gods. We can create whatever meaning we want for whatever happens. The happens. That's out there. But what it means, yeah, we can create it. And so one of the things that I've learned over the course of my life is the ability to curate meaning for myself. And this is a super powerful skill, actually, if leaders have the ability to do this, because you can look. It's easiest to do with a memory, something that's already happened in the past, right? Then you can learn to do it in the present, and you can learn to do it for the future. But if you start with a memory, you start with, let's say, start with a painful memory, okay? You remember what happened. You remember how you feel at that time. You can feel those feelings if you connect deeply with that memory. You can feel the feelings today. But let's take that thing and what happened. You describe what happened. Well, A, B, and C happened. Okay, what does that mean for you? Well, it means that I'm unlovable. It means that I'm unworthy. It means that I'm incompetent. Whatever it means for me. Okay, so that's one of the potential meanings, right? Without changing what happens, can we create a whole spectrum of potential meanings? Think of the worst possible interpretation you can possibly think of, right? Like, we're going to put that here. That's the worst possible thing that it can possibly, and think of the best possible interpretation that can still be true with what happened, right? And so you think of the worst possible interpretation, the best possible interpretation, all of them, are potentially true, because what happened doesn't change. So now, if you have a full spectrum of meanings to choose from, and you have the power to choose whatever meaning you want, what meaning do you want? And so for me, I've made this principled decision to choose to assign meaning that's helpful for me, and useful for me, and life-giving for me. And that's how I've been able to process all of that. I've processed my I've went bankrupt a couple of times. That's another great story, by the way. So my divorce, my bankruptcies, like all of those things, the failure. I've buried 2 companies already, and the failure of those companies was like, well, that's yeah. Those learning experiences have been really, really challenging for me. But as a result of being able to choose meaning, I can go back and create whatever meaning I want. And so the buried companies, for example, they're not failures. Those are learning experiences. I learned how not to do business, right? And
absolutely.
even the bankruptcies, they weren't failures. I didn't have control over those. Um, but yeah, so I had to learn to forgive myself for getting involved in things um, that getting involved in things and having blind spots and just not seeing things the way that I might have seen them otherwise. Hindsight is 2020, but the meaning that you can add as a filter in that hindsight, and that is way more powerful than just a set of goggles.
Yeah. And I'm just reminded of this book called The Goal. I don't know if you've read the book called Goal
No,
by
I
Eliyahu.
haven't actually. Who's it by?
Oh, it's an amazing one by Eliyahu
Mm,
Goldratt. It's a book about where the premise of the book starts off with a guy is asked to run an organization,
yeah.
and and he's given like 3 months, I think, in the book, in the
Mm,
story. And there are some bottlenecks in the manufacturing, all that stuff
yeah,
that
yeah.
he has to handle. And they say that if you don't deal with this in the next 3 months, then we are going to shut down and everybody's going to lose their jobs. And
Wow.
at the same time, his marriage is falling apart. So he has to deal with both of those things together. And the book is amazing in terms of how he deals with all of those things. And the fact that you
Yeah.
shared your story with us is so many entrepreneurs sometimes put their relationship on a backseat, sometimes, not
Mm,
by intent, but because they have to focus so much on the baby, right? They have to focus so much
yeah.
on the
Yeah.
child that is given birth to. And it's very imperative for understanding that yes, things can go out of your control, things can happen which is
Yeah.
not uh, within your own boundaries, and
Yeah.
yet how do
Yeah.
we process through all of that rather than go through depression, seek counsel,
Yep.
seek so many
Yeah.
valuable lessons out there that you have just shared. I was also making a making a metaphor in my mind while you were sharing that, and it is very
Sure.
nice. Like what you're saying, there are things that can happen to us in the past, right? And I was
Yeah.
looking at a painting canvas which had black on it, and it was still wet.
Mm.
I mean, it is still wet, and you add colors, it'll still be dark.
Yeah, that's right.
But if you allow the paint to dry and then you start painting white and other colors on it, you can create a beautiful canvas moving forward, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's right.
so it's a
Yeah,
lot.
look, and I'm not saying, I'm definitely not saying you should
Yeah,
suppress your pain or suppress your emotion when you're in that. No, you have to feel it, right? Like you have to feel your way through it. But when you're on the other side of those feelings, and I think this is where people get it wrong, right? They bottle their emotions and suppress the pain, and then they end up having to deal with it years later. Whereas if you're in that painful experience and you just feel it out, like I tell everybody, when I went bankrupt in 2008, the stock market crashed, our broker went bankrupt, took all of our investments with him. I was totally out of control. So what do? Like I cry for a little bit, I get angry for a little bit, I find the bottom of a bottle of whiskey, and I get back to work because what are you going to do? Like that's just it. You feel your way through it, and on the other side, you can't allow the future of your life to be dominated by the emotional energy that's demanded by this single experience. So you have to create a meaning for it, right? You have to
yeah,
decide, okay, this is what it's going to mean to me. Okay, I'm not going to take 25 years of my life and say, oh, that was a horrible marriage. It wasn't. We had an amazing time. We were best friends. We were best friends, lovers, and drinking buddies, and it was awesome. And I'm not gonna throw the book away because the last chapter was hard. No, it's like that was, and that last chapter has led me to where I am now, and I'm unbelievably grateful. I'm married again now, so I'm with my second wife now for the last almost 4 years. We've been married, and I can't imagine a better quality of life than the one that I have right now. I was telling her, I think just 2 or 3 days ago, I said, I think this is it. I think this is the peak of human happiness. All of my family is healthy. I have money in the bank, gas in the car, food on the plate. I can take as much vacation as I want every year, and I actually travel about 10 weeks a year. I can work or not work. I can do whatever I want for work. So I have complete freedom of time and money. And yeah, I feel like this is probably it. I don't think I can be much happier than this. I'm always going to be a little bit dissatisfied because I'm a human, right? Humans are perpetually dissatisfied. That's how we get to exist. We get to exist because the last 10,000 generations of humans were all dissatisfied, right? When you think about it, those who were satisfied, they stopped trying. Those who stopped trying stopped collecting. Those who stopped collecting didn't have as many resources, and they didn't survive. So the people who became very content and really satisfied, they're not here, right? Their kids were never born. Darwin sorted them out generations and generations ago. All we have now is a bunch of humans that earned the right to be alive because their ancestors were perpetually dissatisfied. So yeah, I'm perpetually dissatisfied. I always want a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. But at the same time, recognizing that, I live in such an abundant world, and I'm so privileged to be here at this time with all of this incredible technology that I didn't create for myself, by the way. And so what I say, like my work, what I do for work, my coaching, my strategy, my training, all of it is an expression, not just of myself, but of gratitude. It is an expression of gratitude for being born into a world of opportunities that I didn't create for myself, you know? And I think that's such an amazing thing. So even though we have these painful experiences in our past, once we've felt through the feelings and we're not bottling them up and we can see the memory without feeling the emotion, that's when we can really curate meaning for ourselves. We can say, you know what, that was a really, really challenging experience, but look how strong I am as a result of that. And that's the difference between like post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic growth, is that there are some humans whose tendency it is to become weaker when they get hit, when they get knocked down. They get knocked down and sometimes they just never ever get back up again. And then there are other humans that tend to use those opportunities to get stronger. And I'll tell you what the difference is between post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic growth, and that is recovery. We don't get stronger when we're in the gym. We don't get stronger when we're exercising. That's not true. When you're exercising, your muscles are breaking down. You're burning energy. The glycogen is going away. The calories are being burned. You're stressing out. You're becoming exhausted, becoming fatigued, becoming tired. No, you are not getting stronger when you're in the gym. You get stronger when you're lying in bed, unconscious, and your brain has the ability to put together all of the damage that you've done to it. And it learns from the damage that you've done to it, and it becomes stronger as a result. And that same principle applies mentally as it does physically. We don't get stronger when we're going through very, very, very difficult emotional times. We get stronger when we're able to recover from those times, when we're able to unplug, spend some time meditating in mindfulness, in therapy, spend some time in nature or alone or with people. It doesn't matter. Whatever your recovery mechanism is, when you spend that time truly in recovery and you can allow yourself to just breathe and be, and then your brain starts to sort out, okay, we can be stronger from this. We can be stronger from this. And then the ability to create meaning on the other side of that gives you the opportunity to decide forever what all of that meant. Because what happened will never, ever change. But what it means is 100% up to you. And once you've recovered, you get to curate that meaning.
Yeah. Is it a great question to ask businesses, what are you dissatisfied about today?
Yeah, I think like most businesses, they'll be able to answer that, right? I want more market share. I want a better margin. I want more fame, more influence, I want a higher quality of service for my customers. Even if it's an unselfish desire, there's still a desire. It's so foundational, it's so fundamental for us to recognize that dissatisfaction is a part of human life, right? Like this is really funny. There's a whole group of people on the planet whose entire lives are dedicated to not wanting more. Do you know who they are? The Buddhist
Hmm.
monks. Okay, everybody's seen them, right? That's their whole thing, is like to just rid yourself of desire, rid yourself of want, rid yourself. Like, the problem is that they all want to be better monks. Okay, so they've just redefined what wanting looks like. And it's not that they don't want, they do want. They want to be better monks. And that's
Mhm.
amazing, just to recognize, like, you're never going to stop wanting stuff. And it doesn't matter that you live in the most abundant time in all of human history, and you might be in the 1% most wealthy humans that have ever lived on this planet just because you're alive today. It doesn't matter that you have access to better technology, healthcare, and communication options than any of your ancestors ever had. You're going to want more.
Absolutely.
Because that's what got
And
all of your ancestors here, right?
and speaking of more, actually, when you spoke about going through the difficult times and thinking that, this, I don't want the last chapter of my book to be like this. And it's
Yeah,
recognizing that this is not the last chapter when you go through a depression, when you go through something.
correct.
It's about realizing you can keep writing the book rather than saying this is the last chapter.
Yeah, so there was a time when I was my divorce was the worst experience of my life, for sure. And there was a time during the processing of all of that. There was about 6 months when we were trying to figure out whether we were going to stay together or divorce. And I was coming to terms with the fact that whether we stayed together or divorced, my vision for my future was gone. What I thought my future was going to look like wasn't possible anymore. And I was mourning that vision before I even mourned the relationship. But in mourning that vision and then in mourning the relationship, it was just such a tremendous sense of disappointment. And that disappointment became perpetual it was weeks, actually. And I spent probably 10 days of my life seriously considering suicide, and what it would take to get it done, how to do it so that it doesn't leave a mess, how to take the best care of my kids as a result of that. And in the end, I'm a strategist, and I could not solve for my kids. I couldn't solve my own death in a way that that they would be okay, and that they would be able to forgive me and walk past that. And I know people whose fathers have committed suicide because of something really deeply cut in their personal life, like a divorce or an affair or something, or in business. They've failed in business and they feel that their position on the planet is no longer required, and they just feel useless. Or even because they get fired. People commit suicide because they get terminated, and yeah, they never recover. Those kids never recover. And I couldn't find enough good examples of kids being able to process that event well. So I decided to stick around for my kids. And I'm so glad that I did, because it was only about 6 weeks after that I really pulled my bootstraps up and got back to work. I was in such a dark place. I was so depressed. And I was like, listen, I'm an executive coach. I literally wrote the book on performance. I know exactly what's going on in my head, right? Like there's just too much cortisol, too much adrenaline. There's not enough serotonin, not enough dopamine. And the dopamine is being produced in the wrong side of the brain. So I called 3 of my friends and I said to them, look, I really need your help. I'm in a dark place. And all I need you to do is call me every day for the next 6 weeks and make sure I go to the gym. That's the only thing I need to do. I don't have to brush my teeth. I don't have to do anything else, but I have to get to the gym and I have to do a little bit of exercise every single day. That's my only requirement of myself. And I need people to hold me accountable to that and just call me and nag me and irritate me into doing it. Can you just be really irritating for the next 6 weeks? And all of them committed to it. And they said, yeah, we'll be irritating for you. It's no problem. And they were. Every single day they called. And no, I didn't go to the gym every day. But the first week I probably went twice. The second week I went 4 or 5 times. And then the third week I was going every day. After that third week, things started to sort out, because when you go to the gym, you get the endorphins, the serotonin, the dopamine, like the neurochemistry of it is pretty quick. And then you sleep better too. If you're exercising, sleep and exercise have a reciprocal relationship. So if you're exercising better, you're more tired, then you sleep better. And so that started to sort out my brain chemistry. And sometimes that's all there is to it, is just, you need to hijack the chemistry in your head and produce the right set of chemicals. And once you've produced the right set of chemicals, then the world occurs to you differently. And the world started occurring to me differently. I started to have hope again as a result of that. And eventually, like by the end of that year, I had turned my entire life upside down. Like I completely reinvented who I was outside of work.
Wow, that's really powerful. Uh, what is your oldest memory as a young kid where you were being strategic in your approach or anything, where you realized that you have the superpower with you?
That's a really good idea. Okay, so my oldest strategy memory was, oh goodness, I was 12 years old. I wrote about this in my book, Business is Personal, because it is my oldest. It's not a strategy book. Well, it is kind of a strategy book. It's helping people find meaning at work. But I did highlight this in my book. I was about 12 years old. My brother would have been about 10, and we decided, we were living in Ottawa, in Canada, the capital city of Canada, and we were living right close to the Ottawa River, which is a very, very big, wide, rushing river, and it was springtime. Okay, and the water was swelling up, and the river was fast, and my brother and I would go down and play by the river, and I got it into my head that we should try to cross the river. Right now, it's okay. If you've ever seen the Ottawa River, it is raging. It is fast, especially in springtime with all of the snow runoff that goes into it. It is a swelling, fast, raging, rushing. It's so dangerous. It's impossible to cross. Okay, even with a boat, it would be very, very difficult to cross. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna cross the Ottawa River, and there was all of these icebergs floating by from time to time, and they would bump into the shore. So I told my brother, I was like, you stay on shore. I'm gonna jump onto an iceberg and try to get across the river. And so I was trying to solve this problem of how to get to Quebec, because Ontario was on one side and Quebec was on the other side. And I was going to go, conquer Quebec. So how do you solve for that? How do you get there? Well, you're going to ride an iceberg across the river. Okay. So and of course I'm an idiot, right? 12 years old. You never think these things can potentially be fatal, but more balls than brains, as they say. So I jumped onto the iceberg and started floating down the river. And then I started realizing, okay, it's getting really fast. It's kind of scary. I'm probably not going to make it. So I needed to change my tactic. And now I'm going to try to get back. So now I'm standing up, and I have no way to paddle. I've got nothing. And I'm just hoping that the iceberg gets me close enough to shore. So finally the iceberg drifts a little bit closer to shore, maybe within 1 meter or 2 meters. And I think, okay, I'm going to jump. But I'm thinking, okay, so I need to get enough momentum. So I've got this strategy play for momentum. Now how am I going to generate enough momentum to get across? Well, I'm going to have to back up. Okay, but what I didn't see is that if you back up on an iceberg, it tips, right? So then the water starts rushing onto the ice, And then I run because I realized like the whole thing's going to tip if I stay here. So I run. And then as I run, I move my weight across to the front of the iceberg, and it tips like this. And sure enough, it sucks up all of my momentum. I leapt, I jumped into the water. I was about almost waist deep in this freezing cold ice runoff water. And then I jumped myself to shore, where my brother was like running along the side of the river going, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine." But I said, "We're going to need a different boat." Right? Like that was my first kind of reaction was, okay, this isn't going to work, but we're going to do it. I'm going to figure out a way that we're going to solve this problem. We did end up trying later on in the summer. I went back and I found an old set of stairs and I tried to turn that into a raft, and the river was not moving as fast. Again, couldn't even get close. I got maybe 6 meters out, and I wasn't any match for the speed of the water. But yeah, so I was covered waist deep in this freezing cold water, jumped on my bike, and I thought, as a 12-year-old child, okay, I can't go home. I need a strategy for cleaning up this mess, right? So what's going to get rid of water on my jeans? Air evaporates water, right? So I'm right. It's got to be around like, it's close to 0 degrees. It's not raining. There's no wind. So I'm riding around on my bike trying to create enough airflow to evaporate this ice that's frozen into my jeans. It was insane, right? Not a great strategy at all. And as a result of that, like I went home, I ended up getting in a lot of trouble. I got sick for days after that. Not surprising. I got really sick as a result. So it was a terrible, terrible strategy. But I remember thinking, okay, I've got to figure out how to get from here to there using only the tools that are like right around me. Like, what can I use? I can use an iceberg. I can use a set of stairs. I can, maybe I can use my brother for help, so, but yeah, so that's one of my oldest memories of trying to solve an impossible puzzle. Now I do as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast, as Lewis Carroll would say. I love solving impossible puzzles. I typically get called on by organizations who have something to, some sort of financial challenge or market challenge or personnel challenge that they can't solve themselves, and then they call me. And those are the puzzles that I enjoy the most, are the ones that look impossible to most people. But because I've been working in at least 150 companies over the last 30 years, there's not much in strategy that I haven't seen. So I have a warehouse of tactics now. I'm no longer that ignorant 12-year-old boy.
What's your definition of strategy?
Clarity, clarity of vision, clarity of mission, clarity of values, and clarity of goals. That's it.
I was recently at the Trust and Inspire. Were you there with the Stephen M. R. Covey?
Yeah. Stephen's a friend of mine, actually. He's
okay.
So yeah, we got together. Oh goodness, I want to say December of 22, and we were having lunch, and I was talking through the subject of my next book. My next book is coming out, by the way.
What is it about?
By the end of this year. Oh, I'll show you
Amazing.
This is okay. Nobody has seen this.
Love it, work. Nice.
Yeah.
Where do we pre-order?
It's going to be on Amazon, but it's not going to be listed for a couple of months yet. I'm in the editing process now. So I finished the first draft. It's gone out to the readers. And actually, there's only 2 physical copies in the world. One of them is this one here, which is my reader's copy. And the other one is a physical copy that I gave to Stephen Covey the other day at Trust and Inspire. As a result of, we've had just such incredible conversations, because he's built his entire brand, his own brand, on trust in leadership. And I wanted to take it to the next level and say, listen, if we can get beyond trust, what is it? And the problem I was solving for with Love at Work is the one about, well, it's love at work. Like, it doesn't make sense to me that the highest potential quality of a human relationship is intentionally exiled from the place where we spend the most time with other humans. That doesn't make sense to me at all. And yet in our workplaces, we can say, look, it comes out, right? So we know we want it, and it even pops into our language from time to time. We'll say, oh, I love you, man, or oh, I love my boss, or I love my team, right? We might say that, but we're not going to look each other in the eye across a boardroom table and say, I love you, right? That's somehow too far. That's too far. We've exiled that purity of this kind of relationship out of our boardrooms and out of our meeting rooms and out of our committee halls. And I think it's because we need to maintain enough professional distance so we can still fire each other at the end of the day if we have to. And as a result, we don't get the same level of trust, commitment, belonging, and believing in each other that we could have if we acknowledged that love is better at work, that leadership is far more effective when leadership is loving. When we're asking ourselves at the boardroom table, what is the most loving thing that we could do with the resources of our organization, right? What is the most loving way that we can treat all of our stakeholders? And what is the most loving way that we can create diversity and equity and inclusion in our economic community? Like those are the questions that I think should be governing our organizations. And so I just became frustrated with not with the lack of love, but with the lack of the acknowledgement of the love that's actually there. When we get into really high performing organizations with really high performing leaders, love is there. They will say it. I love my leader. I know because she cares for me. She looks out for me. I trust her. I trust her vision. I trust her, and I will follow her. Right? But there's real love there. And there's this whole concept of the work spouse too, where you have a best friend at work that knows everything about you and may even know more about you than your actual spouse outside of work. But the whole kind of the work bestie or the work spouse idea, that's been growing in popularity and growing in study as well. So we do have love at work. We're just not very good at describing it, and we're not very good at encouraging it. So I just want to say it out loud.
I want to make a connection over here. Again, I'm going back to
Sure.
your divorce, and
Yeah.
I'm also going back to people firing people from within organizations, right? So
Yeah.
both are
Yeah.
similar, right? You're firing someone
Yeah.
from the organization, you're firing someone from your life. And you
That's
demonstrated where you
correct.
said, even though we are divorced, we have so much of love and respect for each other, right? So the love
Yeah.
is still there.
Yeah.
It's just a different
Yeah.
form of love. So
That's
even
correct.
from within
Yeah.
organizations, even if you have to fire, it can be done in a very loving manner. It can be done out of love that, his time
That's
over
right.
here is done. And it's probably not firing, it's about releasing and letting him go on to do better things and to go on to
Yeah.
create
That's
more
right.
things outside of this space. Probably holding him back
Yeah.
over here is limiting him and his potential.
That's exactly right. So this is the thing, like when you have somebody in an organization who's not passionate, who's not committed, who's not giving it their all, that's okay. They shouldn't be there. Okay. But it's not that you kick them out because you need something better on your team. No, there's a whole combination of influences going on here. First of all, that is a human life. Okay. And I'm not willing to waste half of a human life today. Not anyone should be willing. No leader should be willing to waste half of a human life in their stewardship today. Like that should be unacceptable. So if that person is in their job and they're truly unhappy and truly not empowered, not passionate, not competent, not leaning into their organization, yeah, you know what? First of all, we're robbing them of the quality of life that they could be having, right? They could be in an organization where they're passionate, where they're developed, where they're connecting with the people that are around them, and they're just loving the life that they're in, like the half of their life that they're spending at work every day. It should be meaningful. But if you're going to do anything with half of your life, it should be a meaningful half, because that time that they're putting in, they're never ever going to get it back. It's so unbelievably precious. And that's not just time. It's not just human capital. It's not just human resource. That is human life. Okay. And they're never going to get that day back. And if we continue to allow them to be in a position or in an organization where they're not thriving, they're not being developed, and yet we're aware of the abundance of the world around us. Okay, we're aware of the opportunities, we're aware of the options, we're aware of the abundance around us, and yet we've still got these people that are trapped and stuck in jobs where they don't find meaning, and half of their life every day is just going away. It's going away, and it is never ever coming back. And that's not acceptable. So for them, for their own quality of life, they need to be facilitated into a community or into a role where they feel that they're being challenged and developed and cared for, and that they belong, even if it's not in our economic community. That's number one. Number two is they're sitting in somebody else's chair, right? Like, we have a team to take care of, and our team plays an economic game so that as we win resources together, all of us can feed our families, educate our kids, care for our parents, put gas in the car, food on the plate, and go on a vacation every year. We all get to do that all at the same time because what? Because we move tires around the world, or we have acrylic sheets in our warehouse, or some arbitrary thing. It doesn't matter. The game we play doesn't matter. The team we're playing with matters a lot. And if we have a team member who's really not playing well on the team, that's robbing the whole team of the best quality experience of their community. Plus, it's also robbing another player out there of the opportunity of being on this team where they should be. Somebody out there is passionate and wants to develop and wants to grow and wants to play this role and wants to be on this team with these people in this game at this time. So we're not only robbing the person that's in our organization of the quality of life that they should be having, but we're robbing somebody else of the quality of life that they should be having too. And that's not right. That doesn't feel right to me. But you're right that there's a loving way to do it. We can't just walk in and say, hey, you know what? It's not you, it's me. This isn't working out. No, like my divorce, like every firing, is a series of conversations. It's, hey, what can we do to make this better? Can we make this life-giving for both of us? Can we bring you to the place where you're actually really passionate about this and you want to stay and you want to be aligned? Like, what, how can we help you? How can we help? And if we can't help you, we want you to be passionate and we want you to be happy and we want you to be free. So how can we facilitate you into another organization that's maybe a better fit for you? And this is what I've found is actually a really good strategy for companies that do need to exit people for reasons that have nothing to do with their performance, is to de-hire them. Most of our large organizations have a recruiting function in the organization. All we need to do is take 3 or 4 members of our recruiting team and put their function in reverse. So your job now isn't to read through CVs, but it's to help your people prepare their CVs. Your job isn't to interview people, but it's to help your people to prepare for interviews. And your job isn't to look for employees or outside of the organization, but to look for employers who want to hire the people that you've just trained and developed and want to set free into another community. I've done that in organizations. And first of all, the shock value of it is amazing, right? The people who are being let go, they're like, you're going to what? Oh yeah, we're not letting you go until you have another job, and we're going to help you find another job. And this is your HR business partner. Her name is Sarah. She's going to help you. And as soon as you find another job, that's when we'll let you go. But we want to let you know that we're terminating. Your full-time job is now to find another one, and we'll take care of your family while you're doing it. And it's like just the shock value of that is unbelievable, right? And they're just so great. They're so grateful because it's so unlike the experience of terminate. It's so unlike the general expectation or general experience of a termination. So it doesn't even feel like a termination. It just feels like a trade. Like we're trading players from one team to another team. Hey, we've got a player that's not working out on our team. I think they're going to be a good fit for your team. What do you think? They're like, yeah, bring them over here. Let them play for us. So it becomes a lot more life-giving that way. But it's very, very, you have to humanize the people that are in your care. You have to humanize your employees and your teammates in order to do that. And you have to be willing to invest in that. So yeah, that's been really successful too.
Beautiful. I was going to ask you, what are your closing remarks? But I think anyone who's listening to this should go and listen to that last thing that you said, the whole of answering the last question, which is a very impassioned speech about how really love is the solution to almost everything that we have around in this world.
Yeah.
And if I was looking at this whole conversation that we just had, was it about entrepreneurship? Yes. Was it about life? It was yes. Was it about marriages? It was yes. Was it about parenting? It was yes.
Yeah.
It ticked off all the boxes. It's really about
Good.
how we show up in life and create meaning for ourselves.
Yeah,
so,
good.
Corrie, you've been amazing. I'm looking forward
my
to your
pleasure.
book, Love. Right?
Thank you
Till
so
we meet
much. I'm
again.
so excited about it. Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you, Samir.
Fantastic. It was an amazing conversation. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.